Dear God, 2025. Yeah, some years music wins the battle of the mediums, but 2025 was absolutely a gaming year for me, and it really wasn't even close. Even alongside the handful of excellent older games I sunk my beak into this year, the new releases of the year were just something else, man. I guess that's gonna happen in a big console release year, but frankly, that hardly even factored into the list. Mostly just a ton of long-anticipated games finally getting released this year that did it, alongside the usual handful of indie gems I'd never heard of that blew me away. Good mix of genres on this list too, I think. You'll definitely find a new favorite game somewhere along the way. Also, Deltarune is disqualified. That's not a fully released game yet, sorry. I hate episodic games, by the way. That's rant for a different video, though. Anyways, let's kick things off with some non-2025 honorable mentions. Okay, I want to be perfectly clear that if I counted the definitive edition of Xenoblade Chronicles X as a 2025 game, it would rocket straight up to number 2 on this list, because 2025 was the year of Xenoblade for me, and the more open world take of the series in particular is just basically everything I wanted out of a big, grand adventure / job simulator. Having a big open world to explore with so much stuff to do, and so much great world building by the way of its nigh endless stream of quests, alongside the best and most compelling take on the series combat to date. Haven't played 2 or 3 yet, but I just know this is true. Led to a game that's gonna stick with me for a long time to come. And hot damn that soundtrack. It's not the game I played the absolute most this year, somehow, but it was easily the biggest surprise of the year for me. I'd be here all day if I gushed about every part of the game I wanted to, though, so let's just move on to... Speaking of games with fantastic soundtracks, yeah, Pixel Junk Eden 2 was always going to be a winner for me on that front. Hell, I do think I overall prefer the soundtrack to the first games. And I kinda already did a game you should try on that one, and pretty much everything I said there still applies to this one. Although the structure of this one is a bit different and something I'm not as much of a fan of, but it's whatever, the game's still a ton of fun. Definitely recommend starting with the first one though. I could have counted Chroma Zero as a 2025 game, given it came out weeks before the end of last year, but it's fine. I don't even know if it would make it all that high on this year's list anyways, and I'm saying that about a game that I literally played all the way through in one 6-hour marathon session, something I almost never do, so yeah, it's really pegging good. The best way I can sell it is that this is like Outer Wilds reduced down to nothing but mechanics and puzzles. Lots of learning how things work, what order to do things in, picking apart one massive puzzle box world one loop at a time. It's incredibly satisfying and incredibly pretty to boot. Just good puzzling, baby. And that's about all I have for that part of the HMs, unless y'all really want to hear me yap about Xenoblade Chronicles 1. A better story than X for sure, but the more limited movement and combat didn't capture me quite as much, and the heavy emphasis on questing just works better in X's more open environment if you ask me. Though it'd still easily make top half of this list if I was doing a played-in list instead of a of the year list. Which, speaking of, the year, the HMs from this year. This is the most tragic one, because Unbeatable is like a few small tweaks away from rocketing up to like number 3 or 4 on this list. But the fact of the matter is that this excellent narrative-focused rhythm game launched without goddamn rhythm, and it makes me so upset. Sorry for having a sound system in these higher offset settings. I don't know how this wasn't tested for. The actual story is pretty damn strong, especially in its last few hours, and I would not even debate for a second that it runs away with soundtrack of the year. Seriously, great tunes in a ton of genres, not just the rockers it focuses on. Maybe I'll consider it for my album of the year list instead. But between the miserable state of the campaign and the rhythm game itself just not being the greatest, what if Musash was even more unreadable? What if? I want to scream. I'm so mad about this one. I wanted it to be excellent and it's just not. Worth playing all the same. The sequel to Tori 1, 2, and 3 and Knuckles, here's the most expansive and fast-paced Tori game yet, Tori Saturn, and it's, yeah, hella fun. Kinda. Don't know what else to say about it. It's also short as hell, easily beatable in under an hour, but it's an incredibly fun hour for an incredibly low price, and plenty replayable beyond that, given it's, you know, a Sonic-style game with a Sonic-style ranking system. Going fast, go brrr. It's definitely my favorite Tori game so far, and that soundtrack, man. Some real surprises in there, too. I love platformers so much. But I love visual novels too, and man, good day for sequels, huh? Foreshadowing is literally anyways, Decide for God, the 3rd game in the Abumi series, which is basically Indie Zero Escape. Yeah, that about sums it up. Next, wait, I don't do the bleeps anymore, do I? Okay, this is also a rule learning game, kind of lore learning game. The puzzles have a heavy emphasis on learning how to do them efficiently, and the flowchart has a heavy emphasis on learning key details to unlock different paths. It's like the most extreme version of a puzzle box VN I've ever played, and I think that's really dang cool. Story's a bit convoluted, and a continuity lockout nightmare if you haven't played the first 2 games, and it's a bit lacking in the emotional stakes department overall, but I still found it really damn compelling all the same. Ah man, this was another tragic one because, for one, Calibra and the Souls of Limbo is a game I kickstarted backed, and it is really damn good. Like, it's a Paper Mario style game sans any form of combat, just pure narrative adventure with emotionally gripping stories about grief and moving on, all set in a charming, colorful world. It's got style for days, and it's just unfinished, basically. The game just stops right before it should conclude things, and there's explicitly parts of the game not implemented yet, and it's just not a good look for a game that was, up to that point, so tight and so damn compelling. Can't wait to see it properly finished up, if it ever is, but as it stands, it doesn't quite feel like a complete experience, and that's really the only thing keeping it off the list proper. Which, speaking of, let's get to that list, starting with number 10, Miro. Possibly the most obscure game I've ever put on one of these lists, sitting at a whopping 26 Steam reviews at the time of writing, and one I had to pull my own footage for, but frankly, for Miro, that's probably for the best. It's a game about exploring planets nobody has ever seen before, and that nobody else ever will. It's the very effective use of procedural generation, creating a theoretically infinite game that's honestly quite quaint and trim when you really get down to it. It's mostly about unraveling the mystery of what exactly happened aboard the ship and the scattered abandoned bases that dot each planet, and it's a thoroughly lonely experience in the best kinds of ways. A wilderness exploration simulator that feels appropriately alien. And the environments that I explored frequently left me in awe, which, yeah, that was kind of the main appeal of this one for me. Even after I finished the main story, I still spent some time going to new planets just to see what wonders they held. And if I do ever replay Miro in the future, I know I'll get a completely different yet no less engaging experience, and I think that's the real beauty of the game. Also, it surprisingly has schmoovin' out the wazoo, which makes exploration pretty dang fun. I don't know, I just found it to be a really beautiful experience. Chill and cozy too. Fox's love space. Number 9, Fragrance Point. The first new game I played this year, and man, what a weird one to start with. Fragrance Point is the first game I'm absolutely convinced was made by aliens. Everything about it just feels, well, alien. The visuals, the music, oh god, the music. I love it so much, but it's so weird. The movement, the characters, and writing, every part of the game feels wrong, but like in a good way. Like I stepped into another world where video games went off in a way different, way sicker direction. And despite having played the game several times over to see as much as I could find, I still can't really tell you what kind of game it is. A 3D platformer, an adventure game, a physics simulator, an interactive music video? It's definitely some combination of all of those. And I hardly have words to describe it beyond just making you look at it because, like, this speaks for itself, right? It's just so dang cool. It's weird, but it's my kind of weird. Number 8, Toraban. Every third year, a solo indie dev reinvents Sokoban. Oh wait, I already did that bit back when I covered Patrick's Parabox. And if you like that game, then oh, Toraban is exactly up your alley, because it's like that same level of block-pushing, puzzling mindscrewery pushed up to 11. Several times throughout this game, I just straight up went, oh, this is vile, or this game is ontologically evil, or how dare you, or some variation of such, because Toraban does not kid around. Like, you think, oh, Toreto puzzles can't be that different, but you are a fool. You do not know. You could not expect all the places this game takes the simple twist on the formula, or all the additional mechanics it piles on top of it to create some of the most devious and freaky Sokobaning I've ever experienced. It's just so goddamn clever. I hope we never run out of ideas for absolutely diabolical Sokobans. I will say that, like with Calibra and the HMs, this game is technically unfinished, but I'm not nearly as bothered by it here because there's still a ridiculous amount of puzzling to be had, and the game does a ton to explore every one of its mechanics, save those in the final world, to as full an extent as it can. And I'm definitely looking forward to whatever beyond the pale endgame puzzling Toraban is going to throw at us in the future, but I'm still beyond impressed with what it already has given us. Number 7, Donkey Kong Bonanza. Donkey Kong Bonanza is one of the best games of 2025, but like, at the same time, I'm a little underwhelmed. Like, that's not really the game's fault. Mario Odyssey is one of my favorite 3D platformers ever, and those shoes were too damn big for even DK's gigantic gorilla feet to fill, but even so, Bonanza feels like it doesn't quite have the same sauce as Odyssey did. It's still really damn good, mind you. I wouldn't be putting it this high up the list if I didn't have a hell of a good time with it, but it's not quite the magical experience Odyssey was for me. But okay, it's not Odyssey, it's its own thing, and it's like that level of go anywhere and find the thing mixed with, the closest thing to Minecraft I think I've ever played. I think that's the audience I was targeting here anyways. Digging through the environment is the name of the game here, and it never stops being fun, whether you're doing what the game wants you to do or just unga-bungaing into a mountain to find stuff by brute force. And controlling DK is fittingly way more chaotic than controlling Mario ever was, but it still feels good to move around, and that's really all I ask out of a game like this. The game's also endlessly creative. There's maybe 1 or 2 worlds total out of like 15 proper worlds that I thought was even a little bit bland visually, and the sheer variety and gimmicks and challenges the game presents never once gets stale. Really, my only major gripe is that the post-game tries to be hard, and wow, this game does not work when it's trying to be hard. That was a miserable last few hours of my playtime, but it's like, whatever. Everything up to that point was still wonderful. Just not quite the same as my beloved Odyssey. Number 6, Free Ride. Free Ride feels like a game plucked out of time, a hidden gem from the year 2000, probably a Dreamcast game if I had to pin down its aesthetic style, that got released as an indie hidden gem in 2025 instead, and it's so damn charming. From the visuals to the excellent soundtrack to its dozens of characters, most all of whom have great designs and great writing to boot, I'm mad this is a hidden gem because given the right platform, this would be one of the internet's favorite games, I swear. Like, yeah, it also recreates a lot of the jank of early 3D games. The movement and throwing mechanics are cute, but the game rarely ever asks too much of you on that front. It's way more about the decisions you make and the stories that play out as a result. It's pretty short on a single loop, but there's so much to see that you'd be doing yourself a disservice not to play it several times over. There's a lot of content here, trust me. So many little interactions and secrets to find, even a few routes that feel like you're breaking the game even though you're not. It's just so good. And the story gets surprisingly dark in places, which also feels very Y2K. Like, mild spoilers, I guess, but I think the game handles the themes and major conflict of Clair Obscur, which, for the record, will not be appearing on this list due to Sandfall's idiotic use of generative AI, though I will say it'd have barely scripted the list at best anyways. Free Ride does what it wants to do way better and much more succinctly at that. It's just a magical experience, a game overflowing of passion for the medium itself, and the game on this list I think everyone needs to give a chance. Number 5, the 100-line Last Defense Academy. Okay, here's the game I spent the most time playing this year, which, Jesus pecking Christ, Kodaka, who hurt you? 100 Line is the longest visual novel, by way of also being a strategy RPG and sometimes a board game, but even the pure novel aspect of 100 Line is just staggering in its scope. 100 endings over some 20 different routes, several of which have major pathways early on the boot. Basically, if a type of visual novel exists, at least one route here is going to be that kind of VN, you can bet on it. Okay, but is it good? Well, usually. The main route, the one written by Kodaka himself, is unquestionably the highlight. The true ending is up there with the best things he's ever done, and there's a ton of other routes that are compelling the whole way through. Telling stories worth telling, but God, 100 Line at its worst is unbearable. The worst routes feel like they exist just to pad out the game to its required 100 endings, and there's plenty in between that's just fine. Yeah, this is the game on the list that definitely feels the most bloated. Oh, and the actual SRPG of it all is pretty solid. Nothing amazing, but it's fun and can get pretty satisfying once you've got the whole squad and got everyone leveled up. I liked it. Anyways, the characters and their interactions are what make up the vast majority of the game, and while I can't say this is my favorite Kodaka cast, I want to throw like 3 or 4 of these scrimmels off a cliff. It's fine enough. You kind of eventually learn to love most of them, except Ima and Gaku. This is definitely the game here I feel the most mixed about, but the sheer time commitment just wore me down after a while. Despite its flaws, it's still peak, yeah. And they're working on more? How? Why? Number 4, Advent Neon. Speaking of peak, you ever play a game that knows it's peak and goes, well then, I just have to keep out-peaking myself until there's nowhere higher to go, and then it does, and it's just the peakest thing of all time? That's Advent Neon. Guy pointing to get thing meme, except he goes literal coolest thing ever, and the game is even cooler than that somehow. It's a game brimming of style and personality, and it's just so goddamn earnest about being itself, not a damn given to what anyone else might be thinking. Which would already be great, but then the game itself is just pure bliss to play. It's like the best parts of Mega Man and Sonic combined to make what should be the most uncontrollable nightmare of a platformer, except it all just works. The game makes you feel overpowered as hell and then makes challenges that teach you the meaning of humility anyways. So many cool and creative level concepts, so many satisfying bosses, it's just, I love video games so much, man. It is, again, a little jank, but rarely in ways that intrude on the flow state, and I'm willing to put up with it when the game itself is still so damn fun to play in spite of that. And it, again, emphasizes mastery and replayability like a good Sonic game should, so getting good feels rewarding as hell. Kinda like Sonic in that learning to play around the jank is kinda part of the challenge. Go watch my Sonic Adventure 2 level ranking if you haven't yet. That was the best video I made in 2025, easily. And then play Advent Neon after it. You won't regret it. And now we've reached the big 3. 3 games that have had these top spots unlocked since I played them, all 3 of them just so happening to be sequels to indie games I already loved, and really, the only question was what order they'd go in. Any of these could have been Game of the Year in a weaker year, frankly, but I've only got 1 gold medal to give out, so the bronze medal is gonna have to go to number 3, Lingo 2. Lingo 2 is another puzzle game for sickos, but this time it's word puzzle sickos, which are admittedly not my favorite, and the first game was rife with word puzzles that could easily devolve into guess what the developer is thinking, a problem the sequel did not solve, but like of the original, I simply do not care because the entire rest of the game is just so goddamn clever that any in-the-moment frustrations get lost in a sea of god damn it, Brentons. The big twist of Lingo 2 is that this time it's a Metroidvania, kind of. You have to find letters to be able to use them, which streamlines progression to a point, but also actually does alleviate some of the what word hard could this be problems in the early game because of how limited your options are, and I think that's just lovely game design. Yeah, sometimes you do just have to come back later, and with how maze-like the game is, that can be a tall ask, but I just think it's a neat twist on the formula. And the game's just massive, larger than the first game's multiple levels combined. It almost feels like a game that's infinitely generating more of itself as you play it until you finally do run out of stuff to do, but like, you're gonna be playing this one for a long time, between its scope and its much screwier puzzles and meta puzzles that go way deeper than anything the first game had to offer. It's the kind of game that gets its hooks in you and you spend every waking hour, and some sleeping hours too, either playing it or thinking about it, and it's kinda just wonderful. Helps that the Reno's pretty fun too. Number 2, Rain World: The Watcher. I feel like anytime I put Rain World on my big year-end list, it runs the risk of feeling redundant, because like, anyone who was going to play The Watcher already has, and anyone who follows my channel enough to watch this video probably already watched my other videos on the expansion, so like, I'll keep this one brief, but yeah, The Watcher really is that good. More Rain World is an easy sell for me, admittedly, but I think the new content trends higher in quality than the base game or Downpour did, even if the narrative beats aren't quite as strong. And yes, this isn't a game per se, but like, come on, it's basically Rain World 2. And yeah, this is probably higher after 1.5 than it would have been at launch between all the new content they added, all the bugs they fixed, and creatures they reworked, but even at launch, it was still a damn solid, if unpolished, new take on Rain World. New worlds, mostly, the exact thing I hope to see after Downpour, and with polish, it's become one of my favorite campaigns in the game, up there with Survivor and Rivulet, maybe even better than them both. I don't really think you need me to tell you how to feel about it, though. Just go watch my region ranking. I think that justifies its expansion's placement by itself. Number 1, Hollow Knight: Silksong. Not to be incredibly boring, but like, sometimes the boring answer is just the correct one. I didn't ravenously follow Silksong's development for years like so many others. I knew basically nothing about it other than Horde at Night going into it, and I was expecting it to be a pretty meaty, tough but fair Metroidvania set in a new world that didn't shake up the formula all too much, but gave us a pretty good time. See, Silksong was at a disadvantage actually, because Hollow Knight had already surprised me with its scope and depth in a way that Silksong was never going to be able to, because now I was expecting it, and yet the game still got me good. If you know, you know, but like, wow, managing to surprise someone who was expecting surprise is a kind of a feat in itself, more than worthy of being Game of the Year, even before we get to the simple fact that Silksong almost makes the original feel obsolete. Like, that's exaggeration, sure, the original Hollow Knight is still fantastic, but going back to it after Silksong, god, it feels so primitive. Silksong ups the pacing so much, ups the combat depth, Hollow Knight just feels so much better to play as than the Knight ever did, and Team Cherry must have known this because they made this game goddamn hard. Maybe too hard, but I was more than willing to rise to the challenge, to push through the early game wall and see it through all the way to 100% in the span of less than a week, because Silksong had me hooked in a way that no other game this year did. Like, yeah, they really got me good, huh? And even besides how good the game feels to play, the lore is just a lot more compelling than Hollow Knight ever was to me, especially of how timely a lot of the world building feels. A religious cult positioning themselves in a seat of power, shutting out everyone else and destroying the environment around them in pursuit of their own comfort, the lingering aura of impending apocalypse, and how all the various characters react to it. It's overtly political, but in a way that I imagine the gamers TM wouldn't notice. Maybe the wokest game of the year? But yeah, it was a long wait for Silksong to finally come out, but it came out fully formed and better than ever, and even with some of its early game balance issues, seriously, the double damage can get a bit ridiculous. It was still easily my favorite game I played this year, and more than worth the years and years of hype. But because I love pissing people off, I will close off by saying, still not as good as Nine Souls. I've been Crow, and have a good night, Moths and Gentlemoths. Hope 2026 treats you well.